every now and then a book comes along that hits you for six, that absolutely floors you, and you think to yourself, why did I wait this long to read it? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be doing my review on the most awesome book, The Tattooist of Auschwitz. Now this is based on a true story where the author interviewed one of the last Holocaust survivors. So the material that inspired this story is very real and is very realistic when you actually read the book. So we'll start off with a summary of it. So basically it takes place between 1942 and 1945, and it starts with the main character Lalis, who is a Slovakian Jew and a very, very smart businessman before he came to the camps. So the story opens when the train is on its way to Auschwitz-Birkenau, the two neighbouring camps that become hell on earth for all the Jews. So the scene opens in the train that Lalis is on, crammed in like sardines with the other passengers, and the conditions are horrible. There's a bucket for people to go to the toilet in one carriage, and there's no breathing room at all, so Lalis is subjected to people's body odour and things like that, and it's a very miserable environment. Now when they arrive at the camps, they're ordered to disembark the train minus all their possessions and luggage and whatnot. They are leaving the train with just virtually the clothes on their back, and they never see their other possessions again. Now Lalis finds himself gaining the position of becoming the tattooist. It's his job to mark all the incoming prisoners with those infamous numbers in green ink on the forearms. Of all the prisoners that get tattooed, they become the workers. The ones that are old and frail or the sick all get marched off to be exterminated, basically. Now his position of the tattooist is probably the most secure position you can have, one of the very few positions where you may not actually get executed, that you may in fact survive the ordeal, although it doesn't seem so at the time. Now the best quality about Lalis that I found was his vow to himself that he will survive this hell on earth. It is a great trait for a character to have. He makes a promise to himself that I am going to get through this, I am going to survive no matter what. Now he has the intellect and the street smarts to actually look at achieving that without giving too much away at this point. Okay, so as part of his job as the tattooist, he tattoos a fellow inmate, a young woman called Gita, and his heart's immediately stolen by her, and he becomes infatuated with her and pursues her and eventually falls in love with her and she with him. So it is a classic love story included in this book. Now what makes Lalis' experiences a little bit different, the position he holds, he has a minder or a guard that looks after the block that he's assigned with other prisoners. Now this minder or guard called Boteski befriends Lalis in some ways. So he would just as soon shoot Lalis in the head, but he sees something in Lalis, the inner light, the defiance that impresses him. So as time goes on, Lalis realises that he has an opportunity to smuggle food and chocolate to his fellow prisoners from the outside. What we find is there are contracted external workers that come into the camps and are assigned as roofers, so putting the roofs on what would become the crematoria buildings. And Lalis befriends the foreman of the group called Victor, and they strike up a conversation, and it turns out that Lalis can actually procure food and chocolate from the outside through Victor for an agreed price of being paid with jewels and precious gems and jewellery. This all comes from the warehouse where all the discarded belongings are kept, and it's up to prisoners to sort through all those items, and what they find is cash and jewels and jewelry and watches and rings and whatnot, which they give to Lali to then give to Victor, to then obtain food and chocolate that he can distribute to the rest of the prisoners, some of the prisoners, and to bribe some officials as well. So Lali's intellect is one of the main ingredients for him to overcome impossible odds. So in this book there's some very confronting scenes. There are descriptions of where the dead go to be incinerated, and it makes you gag, where the discarded belongings that get sorted through by the prisoners assigned to that job, the rancid food and the dirty clothes. It's all written so well by Heather Morris that it puts you right there in the environment. Now, feel free to skip this section. This is some spoilers here, okay, if you haven't read the book, but if you have read the book, you're going to be knowing what I'm talking about here. So, eventually, Lali escapes when the Russian forces come in to liberate the camp in 1945. At that point, before the camps are liberated, the Jews are sent on a death march by the Nazis in a last-ditch effort by them to remove as much evidence as they can by shooting all the Jews left in the camps. Now, a few runaway trucks made it out, and Lali made it on one of these trucks and eventually escapes the camps. Then what he manages to do, he gets picked up by Russian soldiers and says to them, look, I've been a prisoner in Auschwitz for 3 years and I'm a Slovakian Jew. And what they do is they get to know that he does have a keen business sense, and they take him and employ him as a pimp in a town where it's his job to visit the local establishments and cafes and employ girls to attend parties at a big villa with Russians there who have their fun with the girls, and they get paid for it. Now, the position isn't completely voluntary. He's put under guard and everything like that, but as time goes on and as he gets better at his job, he actually gets trusted enough for him to have a day off and just to go into the town and just have a look around. And Lali has always meant to escape and get reunited with Gita and find his family back home in Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. So what happens there is he does get away, and he does get reunited with the love of his life, Gita, and then migrates with her to, well, they flee to France, and then eventually they migrate to Australia in the 1950s and set up a business here, and they flourish. So it's such an incredible story of hope and survival and overcoming insurmountable odds and digging deep within yourself to actually survive this ordeal, which is hell on earth. What they did at those camps was horrific, and Heather Morris's writing is sublime and spellbinding, and some scenes were graphic and difficult to read, but in all, just a fantastic book. I mentioned before Christmas that I burnt myself out and thought, look, I'm not going to read anything else for the rest of the year, and I thought, well, I will pick something short and easy to see out the year, and this is a bucket list read for me. This was a bucket list read for me, and I'm glad I read it. It was such a powerful experience. It makes me want to go out and get Heather Morris's other books. She's written 2 other books, Chilka Story and 3 Sisters, which has just been released recently. So you know, for a genre reader of horror, thriller, crime and fantasy, never in a million years would I think I would enjoy a more general fiction book. So I was enthralled from start to finish. I read it very, very quickly and enjoyed it thoroughly, and it's so important to read about this stuff, even though it's not pleasant, but just to know what people went through and how Lali in particular used his wits and survived that ordeal, and just kept hanging in there until 1945 when the camps were liberated. So yeah, I found it fantastic. Now, because I enjoyed the book so much, I had prematurely put out my top 10 for 2021. I was confident that no other book would make it into my top 10 for the year, and I don't mind admitting that I was wrong. So given that I can't take back the top 10 and I can't edit it and redo it, I thought, well look, the right thing to do here is just insert it within the list, and I'm making it a solid 3.5. So I'm ranking it between 3 and 4, and I guess there's no rules to that, so I can make up my own rules, and for a book to affect me so much, it does deserve a belated top 10 mention. So that's it, that's my review. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Give me some feedback in the comments as always, and I will respond to those. What's happening with the channel for the rest of the year? I've only got a couple of days to go. What I'd like to do is just put my 2022 reading plan out there. I'll share that with you, and I'll also, right at the end of the month, I'll also reveal my January TBR as well, and what I want to read for the first month of the year. So a bit of a mixed bag there. There's a couple of loose ends I want to tie up, and that sort of thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.